starting recording. To begin with tonight, I wanted to show you a couple of things. So we'll just start out on the home page, and I'm not logged in at all. If you go to www.CoCoRaHS.org or searching for us on Google, you'll find our home page. Now, for those of you who have recently joined, of course, up in the upper right corner is where you log in. And I'm going to show you a few things. Once you're logged in, I'm going to log in as a test account here, just so you'll get to see the same things that you would see if you were logged in as yourself. Let's see here. I had let's get logged in, and of course not doing well. Well, give me 1 second. Sorry about that, everyone. We've got it right here. Okay, we're going to log in as Testy Tester. Now, first thing I want to point out, when you logged in, there was a box there to save your login, and if you click that, I'll be honest with you, this feature has not always worked on all browsers, but my main suggestion for everyone is you can click this Save Login and log in, but my advice to you is to now don't log out. There is a log out button, but it's not necessarily needed. And when you're done entering data, when you're done viewing our website, you can just simply leave, go to another website, but don't click log out. And then the next time you come back to our site, you'll be logged in. The other thing I want to remind you or recommend is that once you log in, it of course defaults to your data entry page, but this is the point where I would recommend you save this as a bookmark. So depending on your browser, there's different ways to create bookmarks, but save this page as your bookmark, and that way when you want to go to your bookmark, it'll take you straight to the data entry page. While we are on the data entry page, I'll go over a couple of things, and then we'll head back to the home page, and I'll go over a few more of the basics. The first thing I want to point out on the data entry page is the top box is really the most important part, and you can consider the bottom boxes optional. Now, of course, we do appreciate snowfall data, and if you did not have any snowfall, we appreciate entering zeros, and you can use your tab button on your keyboard to advance to each field. So if you didn't have any snow, go ahead and put zeros for that. But you'll notice that the main precipitation box already defaults to a 0. So if you didn't have any rain the previous day and you're checking your gauge at 7 a.m. and you had nothing, you can log in, go straight to the submit button, and you are done. That is it. Now, there's a couple of notes on here. If you even saw one raindrop or one snowflake, even if it did not land in your gauge, that counts as a trace. So if you saw the concrete and one drop fell, why, go ahead and enter a capital letter T for trace. If you maybe went out to your rain gauge and you were bringing it inside to read it inside for whatever reason, possibly because it's filled with snow, but on your way back inside, maybe you slipped and fell and spilled the contents of your gauge and you have no idea how much was in there. Well, we ask you to enter a capital NA for unknown. So if you are reporting just a snow depth, maybe you got 3 inches of snow, but you don't know how much liquid that was, you can go ahead and fill in an NA in your main precipitation field. Finally, we really encourage folks to add notes. I'll go over that in just a minute, but if you add observation notes, they will be public, but a lot of people do it just for their own kind of weather diary. You can look back years later and go, oh yes, I remember when that bird landed on my rain gauge, because you wrote that down in your observation notes. So we highly recommend that you add notes. They really make a difference, and we do read them. So I want to point out a couple of other things regarding your account. And at the top of the page, we've got these constant menu items. They'll always be here, and they never change. And if you clicked on My Account, you're going to see some of your station information. You'll see some of your address information. I'm coming to you from Colorado right now. We made up an address for this test account here in Juneau, Alaska. But if you have a change in something, let's say you move, well, we need you to contact info@CoCoRaHS.org. If you have moved and need to change your address, we need to assign you a new station. The old station number is going to stay at that old location, and the data will be available for any future researchers who want to look at that data. But if you move, we need to give you a new station, and so please contact us at info@CoCoRaHS.org if you've moved. You can change a couple of things. You can add your phone number. You can, I think you can add your phone number. You can, yes, and you can change your email address. So those are some things that you can do on your account, and we'll come back to the My Account page a little bit later. Moving to the home page, you can always click on the logo or the home page to get back to the home. And I want to point out one of the things that we've been asked just since we invited many of the new people to CoCoRaHS to be on this webinar tonight is, where do I get a rain gauge? And that's a very good question. On the right-hand side of the page, if you scroll down a little bit, we've got links to a couple of different vendors. Here's one vendor. Here's another down here. This vendor actually sells parts. So if I'll click on them really quick, they sell the gauge here on the right-hand side. They also sell the ET gauge, which I'll mention here in a little bit as one of the other types of measurements that is optional with us. But they sell the rain gauge, and they also sell parts. So if you just want, if your funnel broke or your inner tube broke, or maybe you want a spare outer cylinder, these guys sell the parts. Okay, so now you know where to get your rain gauge. The next thing I want to show you, of course, on the home page, we always have our daily map that has the current number of reports that are on the map at any given time. So this is updated. It just updated right when I went to the home page here. But below that map is the state pages map. So if you, for instance, live in Illinois, there is a state page for Illinois, and there might be information about upcoming training sessions. Each state coordinator does different things with their state page. So depending on what state you're in, you check it out and see what is on your state page. But on any given state page, if you want to find your coordinator, look to the left-hand menu for the state menu and click on state coordinators. And you can see that Illinois has a list of a coordinator for every single county. If you live, I'll show you another state, and you'll see that I'm actually just changing the URL from IL to CA, and if you did that, now we can see the coordinators for California, and that gets you information for contacting your state coordinator. Back to the home page. I've shown you my account about the information on how to change some things, but I want to click back here one more time and draw your attention to the left-hand menu on my account. This is where, if you want, you can change your username, you can change your password to whatever you want. So if you want to change it from from the default that we gave you, this is the place to do it. Click on My Account and then look to the left-hand menu. One last thing I want to point out is if you forgot your ID and password. I'm going to log out, and on the login page, there's a button, find your login information, and if you click on that, you can enter your email address, or if you know your station number, you can enter it right there. I'm going to log back in as Testy Tester. And as I showed you already, it goes right to the data entry page when you log in. All right, so I've mentioned my recommendation to bookmark the login, or the data entry page. And I've talked about how everything below the main box is optional, so please fill it in to the best of your ability, but if you want to skip it, that is okay as well. What I want to point out, though, is that we have more than just precipitation. Of course, the main precipitation form is meant to be a 24-hour report. So if you have not checked your gauge for a day or two, or for more than one day, I should say, you want to immediately come over to the left-hand menu where you're going to click on multi-day accumulation. And when you do, you're going to want to adjust the date to the day after your last report, whatever that was. Maybe if you have your gauge at a school and your last report was on Friday, you missed Saturday and Sunday, and now it's Monday, so you would start on Saturday, you would put Monday's date, you would fill in the amount that you've got, and you hit submit. Again, from that data entry page, looking to the left-hand menu, there are other reports to fill out. Hail and significant weather. These two we talk about all the time in Nolan's catch. These two are real-time reports. So if it is hailing, or if you've got any other type of significant weather, it is raining cats and dogs, it's rained half an inch in the last 15 minutes, why, the National Weather Service wants to know about that. And whether you're filling out a hail or a significant weather report, when the moment you hit submit, that report gets routed to your local National Weather Service office, and alarms ring, and they will take note of your report, and if needed, they will issue a watch or a warning downstream from where you are if needed. So these reports are valuable, and we really recommend them. This monthly zeros, I'll briefly point out, is when you, let's say you just write down the days that it rains and you only submit data when it rains. You can come at the end of the month to this monthly zeros report, and any day that it did not rain, you can click the box and you can submit zeros and end up with a complete data set by clicking all those boxes. So hit submit, and then you've submitted zeros for any days that you did not report. If you did have a data point, it would show it here. Oh, you had 53 hundredths on the 23rd. It would show it right here if you had already submitted that. So if there's a box to check for 0, it means you did not submit a report for that day. We also have condition monitoring. I'll leave that for your exploration, as well as all these frost reports. Frost is an acronym standing for frost, rain, optics, snowflake, and thunder. And if, for instance, you saw a rainbow or a sundog and you wanted to report that, go ahead and fill that in and report. Any extra notes, we would love it. These are fun data to submit and to view. Okay, so I've shown you many of the optional reports. I'll go back to the home page, and I want to point out the resources that we've got in the left-hand menu, including information like I talked about, the condition monitoring reports, or if you're interested in measuring evapotranspiration, there's more information on these sort of reports in the left-hand menu. I want to move now to talk a little bit about viewing data. And so the first thing I'll point out, back to my data, or I think my account, you've got a way to look at your past reports and even edit them. So again, either on the My Data page or My Account page, you can click under List and Edit My Reports and see every report that you've ever submitted to CoCoRaHS. And if you want to view a specific one, click on the little magnifying glass and you can see your report. Or if you want to edit a report, you can click on the little pencil, and that allows you to actually get back into that report. You can make a change and resubmit it, and it'll be edited. So that's to look at your own reports, but it's also fun to look at other data. And so I want to show you a few of the functions in our View Data page. And when you click on View Data, all of the types of things that you can do are on the main page, but they're also in the left-hand menu. The first thing I'll show you is the top one, Daily Precipitation Reports. This is kind of fun. You can choose whether it's the entire country or maybe a specific state. I'm going to choose Colorado for today, and it pulls up 515 records. And each one of these column headings is, you can click on it to sort. So if I click on total precipitation, it's going to resort all of the Colorado data from the time frame, the start and end date that I've selected, and we can see here that the highest amount of precipitation in Colorado was from this station at 44/100ths of an inch. And if you wanted to see more and see maybe, oh, they added some notes, fantastic. So you can look at data that way. And as I mentioned, there is a start and end date, so if you want to look for history, you can choose your own start and end date. Back to the View Data page. Another one I want to show you, which is kind of fun, is the daily comments. I mentioned we really like comments. We read the comments. We actually have a whole team of extra volunteers, CoCoRaHS observers, but who have raised their hand to volunteer extra to review the comments, and they look through the comments and they flag anything that where someone asks a question or maybe there's something inappropriate. They can flag it and they can notify us at headquarters, and then we can either respond to the question, whatever it might be. Some people write poems in this. This is fun. I promise, if you look through the comments, whether it's in your state or others, you'll get a kick out of some of the things that some of the people write, and it might give you some ideas for what you want to write in your own comments. Back to the View Data page. I also want to point out it's kind of fun to look through some hail reports. If you do, you can look through several years. I just put this back to 2015 in Colorado, and I'm searching, and now I'm going to even readjust this to look for photos, and clicking on it twice, it's now pulled up all of our data where we have actually analyzed the hail pad, including taking a photograph of the hail pad. So those are fun to look at. Back to View Data. I want to show you a couple other ones that are some of our favorites. One of them is the Station Precipitation Summary Report. Clicking on this, you can look at up to 3 stations at once. I'm going to go ahead and use Nolan's station as an example. So I'm just dragging over his example, COLR 273. This report always defaults to the first of the month, so actually in a couple of days it'll only show just a couple of days of the month, but now we can see Nolan's data, and he still hasn't entered his data for this morning. I've exposed him now, so actually, yeah, that is this morning. But anyway, you can look at the data that way, and you can look at up to 3 stations at once. Sorry about that, Nolan. I'm going to use your station for a couple other examples.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. A couple other ones that I want to point out. The total precipitation summary report. This is kind of neat too, because you can choose a start date and an end date, and whether you want to look at your state or the whole country. And now you can look and see who's got complete data. And you can see some stations have, this one for instance has only reported 2 reports over these last up to 9 reports. So sometimes you might be interested in a particular county. So I've chosen Broomfield County, and there weren't that many to, so maybe I should have chosen Denver County or something with more. There we go. And now let's just say you want to sort by number of reports. And so now I can see that these top stations have complete data for those 9 days. And now I can see, oh, this person has 1.16 over those 9 days. I can even click on the station number, and it's going to pull up the station summary from those 9 days, including the total at the bottom. A little tip for the experts in the webinar. From this page, if you look up to the URL, you can see that it's got basically the station number, the start date, the end date. From this point, you could manipulate the URL, and you could change it to LR 273 for Nolan Station, and hit get. Whoops, I actually meant to hit enter from up here, and now it gives Nolan's station. Another trick that I'll show you all here, it says station precip summary, but if I take precip and change it to the word snow and hit enter, and now we're looking at Nolan's station snow summary, and we can see if he had recorded any snowfall, which of course we've had some zeros during this time frame. So just a couple of extra tips for the pros as well that are in the room here. The final report that I want to show off in the view data section is towards the bottom, and it's called the rainy days report. This one is Nolan's favorite. One reason, let's see, I'm going to choose all states, and it's going to pull up the last month, and now we can see the total number of reports each and every day, and you can see how many of the days broke over 10,000. If I choose all countries and include Canada, we can see that most days we actually break over 11,000 reports. It's fun also to choose a state. I'm going to choose Kansas because I know they've really gotten some rain here recently. And if I choose Kansas, some of the fun things to look at is the average precip for the entire state. Look at the yesterday. There were 604 reports, and every single one of those reports was greater than a trace. So none of the reports were trace or even zeros, and you can see that the max precip for that state is 5.11 inches, and the average for every single report in the state of Kansas yesterday averaged to 1.55 inches for the state. So these are fun statistics to look up. I really recommend you browse the view data section and have fun with it. Moving on, I want to showcase some of the maps that we have, and it's not just our maps. I'll show you a couple of other outside resources as well. And then we're wrapping up my section, and we'll open things up to questions in just a couple of seconds. So after I go through a couple more cool resources for maps. So the classic map, many of you are familiar with that. Whether you click on a state, you can now choose cities or counties. I'll pull up Fort Collins, and we can see where we are here, and not much precipitation fell yesterday for today's map. There was, in fact, I wonder if a couple of these were left over from the day before, because if I toggle the date back one day, and click Get Map. Why, we've got a lot more data points, including where I'm sitting right here, 5300ths at CoCoRaHS headquarters. Nolan?
Can you also show the difference between standard and inverse?
Absolutely. This is a key for those especially who may have color issues, Nolan included. I'll spill the beans, is colorblind, so he likes to use the inverse maps. And using the inverse, it's maybe a little bit easier to see. So back to the standard, just so because it's going to remember that in my browser, and I prefer the standard. Back to maps. If you go to the new map, you can click on a specific state, but I want to point out a couple of issues. We kind of all laugh at this point. The new map is so old that it's no longer new, but some people will come to the new map and they'll zoom into their area and they say, well, where's my dot? I'm here, I reported, but I'm not seeing my dot. Well, this map can only handle 600 reports at once. These column headings are adjustable as well, so I can click on it once to sort from lowest to highest. I can click on it again and sort from highest to lowest. But the map is still going to be limited to 600 data points. So if you want to see your dot, you might have to either adjust the precip column or just pull up your state. So I'm going to pull up Kansas again because it was such a good map. Even today was fantastic as well. But you can zoom in now just like a Google map. You can click on if you hover, you can see the amount, and if you click on the dot, you can see some more information and even go to the report details. No notes. Womp womp. Okay, so that is the new map. Classic and new. But I want to take my last 5 minutes and show you all a few of the outside resources that map CoCoRaHS data. And so all of these links are going to be found first if you go to FAQ and Help in the left-hand menu from the home page. And then under Frequently Asked Questions, we're looking at Viewing Data, FAQ, Viewing Data. 3 choices. I'm choosing the third choice, View CoCoRaHS data using NOAA and Regional Climate Center products. I want to tell you really quick before we get into the details of these products that those of you who are brand new, your data will not show up in these products quite yet. But once you have submitted 100 data points, basically after 3 to 4 months, your data will start being ingested into what's called GHCN, the Global Historical Climatological Network. And from there, your data end up in all sorts of products. So the first one that I'm going to click on, Regional Climate Centers. This brings us to different regional climate centers around the country. And each one of these climate centers offers their own set of different products. And there are CoCoRaHS data in all of them. I'm going to show off just a couple of them. If you click on the High Plains Regional Climate Center, we can go, for instance, to the station tool. And just for fun, I will type in Austin, Texas, just as an example. And it's going to search 20 miles network. I'm going to choose CoCoRaHS. And look at all those CoCoRaHS stations in and around Austin. If I click on one, it's going to give me some information about the station. I can click on accumulated precipitation and it's going to give me some neat, beautiful graphs. I can go to monthly total precipitation and it's going to give some beautiful bar charts. So that's through the High Plains Regional Climate Center. The Midwestern Regional Climate Center, I'm going to show you guys a tool in just a couple of minutes called Climate that's part of the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. The Northeast Regional Climate Center, all of these, they all have products that use CoCoRaHS data that showcase CoCoRaHS data. So I encourage you to come to the regional climate centers and click on a regional climate center of your choice and check out some data that way. I'll briefly show you the NOAA Now data. If you click on that link, you can choose whatever National Weather Service office you want. And what I want to show you is that the first thing you need to do is click on View Map. And as soon as you do that, there's a button at the bottom, Show More Stations. And clicking on that, look at all those CoCoRaHS emblems that come up, the logos. And if you click on a CoCoRaHS station, it'll choose that station, and now you can view data for a month. You can choose however you want to view that data, and womp womp, that station hasn't reported, so that one wasn't a good one to choose. But if you chose your own station, you can view your data that way. So again, that is through the NOAA Now data. Couple more. The EDD, the Enhanced Data Display. This is really a cool product, and they have tons and tons of options and overlays and different things that you can choose, but I want to show you how to get CoCoRaHS data. Come to Observations and click on the little raindrop, and sure enough, there's a little box, Show CoCoRaHS. I'm going to click on the calendar and go back to yesterday, and just like a Google map, I can zoom in, and as soon as the data starts to come in, hopefully, and I won't wait too much longer. If it doesn't show, I promise you it will for you. And the one thing I want to point out is that if you end up zoomed in and showing off your data and you're looking at different stations and you want to share this with someone else, look to the bottom of the page, Save and Share, and this will give you a link that will have everything that you dialed in. If you had overlays, you're looking at whatever data you chose, you can take this link and share it with your friends. You can make a QR code if you're into that. And oh, look, here's all the data for that day. Beautiful, 2.54, 2.82. And if you hover your mouse over any of these, you can see that the specifics of the data. So again, this is really cool to share this with your friends. Okay, last couple ones, and then we're turning it over to Nolan. The NORSC or NORISC, depending on who's saying it and how you want to pronounce it, this is for the National Operational Hydrological Remote Sensing Center, and these guys are all about snow. And you can find your CoCoRaHS station. I'm going to choose Colorado. I think I looked ahead, and I think Nolan was on page 5. CO. Whoop. Well, maybe I should, there we are. COLR 273, and beautiful analysis of snow data. And you can see again the URL kind of gives it away. You can change the station number to something else pretty easily here. So that is NOAA's NORISC for snow data. And finally, I want to show off Climate, which was part of the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. They do require you to register, but oh, and I thought I had it memorized, my ID and password. There are some neat products in here. I won't go into this, but if you register, it's free. You'll get an ID and password, and you can look at some beautiful maps and of CoCoRaHS data through the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. So I've shown you a lot, and again, this page, Other Ways to View Your Data, was found through FAQ, Viewing Data FAQ, and then we had a couple other things to do, but if you look at View Data using NOAA and Regional Climate Center products, you'll get to all of those links. So with that, I am going to stop talking and Nolan is going to unmute himself, and if everyone wants to, if you have a question, and I have obviously avoided some of the obvious about how to take certain measurements and specifics about how to measure precipitation, but if you've got questions about that, now is your time to type in some questions.
And while you're there, Noah, can you point out where you find the training instructions?
Absolutely. There are many ways to find training instructions. We've got slideshows, which you can look at different slideshows. We've got written instructions, things to know about rain, hail, snow, and if you click on either one of these headings, you will find more information about rain. Click on measuring rain, and you can just have written instructions. I'll point out up in the upper right corner, if you click on our YouTube channel, we have training animations. We've got training webinars. This is exactly where tonight's webinar is going to live, is on this playlist right here. So we've got training tutorials. You name it, there are resources out there for you to find out how to measure. Okay, so we've got some questions coming in, Nolan, and I'm going to do my best to read what we've got here. How do I find out how much rain in a certain area other than mine? Do I enter that? Okay, so I'm sorry, I need to pre-read these because I've answered some of these already. Okay, so here's a nice question. Is there a way to upload pictures? And I will answer that and say, unfortunately at this point, no, but we have hopes and dreams of adding a way for you to add photos that can be associated with your station and reports. So
And if you do have something that's just compelling, just go ahead and attach it as an email and send it to us. But that's not terribly efficient, but we've gotten some amazing photos from you.
Yeah, so please send them to info@CoCoRaHS.org if you want to share them. Okay, Nolan, I see in one of the, here's a question. I see in one of the presentations to take a core of snow to determine the melted amount of precip, but in these cases, they used a black PVC pipe. Can you explain what's going on if someone's using a PVC pipe to do a core sample?
Yes, indeed, and this has been developed by some of our snow hounds in the northern states and in Canada, and they've been trying to come up with a cost-effective, manageable way of taking water content samples of very deep and in some cases icy snowpack. Now it requires doing some computations and adjusting because I don't think the example I'm remembering wasn't even a 4-inch diameter pipe, but if it's an exact 4-inch diameter, then the core is the same as doing a core with one of our gauges. But if not, then we have to make a adjustment for the diameter and area of the sample. But there are places where our little 12-inch tall gauge is simply not going to be sufficient to get a core sample of the kind of snows that fell. I don't know if anybody's on the call who just experienced the snow 2 weeks ago in New England and Pennsylvania, but we had a number of places that got 30 to 40 inches in just one day. So their regular rain gauge was not sufficient for getting measurements in that sort of a situation.
One thing I forgot to point out, and I want to show you from the My Account page, somebody asked about the Prism Data, and it was broken a couple weeks ago, but we have now since fixed it. And if you are on My Account and look next to your station, if you click on Prism Data, that gets you into the Prism portal, where you can then, it'll default to your station. Right now this example is not, but if I chose Colorado, I choose COLR 273 for Nolan, and then you click View Precipitation Data, and now you can see modeled averages at your exact location. This is in Nolan's case, this is his location, and this is a fun site to play with as well. So again, on the My Account page, click on Prism Data, and you can view some beautifully modeled long-term averages at your location. Nolan, the next question. I am a National Weather Service weather spotter. Do I need to report severe weather on CoCoRaHS and the National Weather Service website?
And the answer is no. While we appreciate the reports, the main thing is that they get to the National Weather Service. So if you're already a trained spotter, they have a path for you to get your reports into them. They will not they won't show up in the same archived retrievable way as the CoCoRaHS reports, but they will get to the Weather Service equally fast as if they are reported to us. Plus you may have the chance to talk to somebody there that you have been personally in contact with, and that's always a good thing. So as long as you get it one way or the other, they win. The importance of those real-time reports are really for warnings from the National Weather Service. That being said, hail is a whole different ballgame. The hail reports collected by CoCoRaHS volunteers are unique in terms of the type of detail that is collected. Most people, when they're submitting hail reports to the Weather Service, are just reporting the maximum diameter. Nothing about the total number of stones, the size distribution of stones, the hardness and color of the stones, the duration of the hailstorm, etc. If there's any way possible that you can take the extra minute or two to submit this information, it becomes a gold mine for hail research that is not available from any other source. So do consider that. Go ahead and call in your hail report through the Weather Service Storm Spotter method, but if you could possibly fill out a complete hail report, that adds great research value.
All right, thanks Nolan for that. I will point out if we do not get to your question, we'll contact you through email to answer your question. So we'll try to get to as many as we can in the next 20 minutes or so, but if we don't get to you, we'll send you an email. Someone's asking, is there a way to measure a multi-day report via the smartphone app? And you've kind of asked two questions at once. Do we have an app? Yes, we do. On the home page, there are links to the App Store and the Android app, but really from your smartphone, you'll want to, in the store, you'll want to look for CoCoRaHS Observer is what it's called, the CoCoRaHS Observer. And so if you search for that, you'll find it, and it's free. But to answer your question, no, for right now, two things. You cannot enter multi-day, and you cannot edit your data. So unfortunately, if you make a mistake, you have to come to a computer and edit your data that way. We're making changes and additions to the app as fast as we can, and those are highest on the wish list. So multi-day and editing data will be available on the app one day, just not right now. Okay, Nolan, if we have an afternoon snow with, let's say, 2 inches of accumulation, but by report time the next morning it is melted, should I report that as a 2-inch accumulation even though by morning it's gone?
The answer is yes. The definition of snowfall, fresh snow, is the maximum accumulation that is observable prior to melting or settling. So if the depth, if it accumulated to a depth of 2 inches and then melted, you report 2 inches as your snowfall. But then on the other column where you report total depth of snow on ground at the time of observation, that then would be a 0 or a trace if you still have a little bit left in the shade. But that would be under the situation described there. 2 inches, 2.0 would be what you'd report for snowfall. 0 would be what you would report for the total depth of snow on ground at the time of observation of the next day.
All right. I have a question. Someone's asking, they noticed that there's an old training session on YouTube that's 4 years old. Is that still relevant? I would say it is, actually. There's some good information in all of those different training sessions, and honestly, the website is more or less going to function the same as it was 4 years ago. So things should still be relevant on that. Okay, Nolan, I'm trying to get to another question that will be good for you here. Oh, here's a great one. If I submit a significant weather report today, does that affect my regular daily rain total for my report tomorrow morning? What do I do? Do I subtract it? How do I report my significant report, but then what do I report the next morning?
I am so glad you asked that, because that one is a source of confusion. They are two separate lines. Significant weather report, you can enter as many increments as you wish or feel the need to, but it doesn't change the fact that you will still have to independently submit your daily precipitation report. So the significant weather report is not summed to produce an automatic daily report. You have to do that yourself. So please, if you enter as many significant reports as you feel the need to, but still go ahead and do the full 24-hour measurement total for your report on the following day.
All right, fantastic question. Okay, looking for another good one here. Got lots of...
I'm sure they're all good ones.
Yeah. Okay, so someone's asking, is it possible to modify or update either the user information or the observer information on the website within our account? And I'll answer that again. On the My Account, you can edit your phone number, which we don't post on here, but it's internal, and you can change your email address. But if you're moving, you'll want to contact info@CoCoRaHS.org. Somebody else asked, what if I just moved my rain gauge from kind of one side of my property to the other? And if it really is only moved, a block or less than, a couple hundred yards, or I'm not sure if, Nolan, if you've got a set amount, if if someone moved directly across the street, we probably aren't going to create a new station ID. But if you moved...
Right. Probably about 200 yards would be the limit for not calling it a new station.
All right, thank you. So that answers that question. Thank you, Nolan.
Hold on, then I have a question.
Yes.
And that pertains to, can you change the time, your default time of observation? Or do you have to contact CoCoRaHS.org to make that change?
Fantastic, yes. So any day you can, of course, change the time that you observed your gauge to whatever you observed it at. But Nolan, you're right. If you want this default to be something different, contact info@CoCoRaHS.org and we will change it to whatever you want. Of course, we prefer a morning observation sometime between 4:30 and 9:30 a.m. But we've got plenty of people that report they like to do a 11:59 p.m. observation, and we set their default at 11:59 p.m. and every day they log in, and that's what it defaults to. So good question, and yes, we will change it to whatever you want.
Let me amplify that a little bit. If you do your reading at 6:50 a.m. on a dry morning and your default is 7 a.m., just go ahead and leave it as 7 a.m. But if it's raining at the time you do the observation and your default is 7, but you're reading the gauge at, say, 6:30, it is best to go ahead and then type in the exact time that you read that gauge as for your observation time of that day, because it will affect how your readings will compare to your nearest neighbors who might have been reading later than you.
So a couple people have asked, how do I look up someone else's report? And of course, you can't look anyone up by any names or addresses or anything, but if you want to look up other people's at other data, there's a few ways to do it. I showed you some of the tools with, if you, for instance, were in a map and you wanted to look up someone's history, and so now I know that this is CoAR71. I can take that and put it into the station precipitation summary, and I can look at this person's data for the whole month. So you can find a station number or a station ID and then dial it into one of our tools to find their data. I hope that answered that person's question. Okay, more questions about multi-days on the app. Yes, we hope to get that in soon. Still looking for more measurement type of questions.
And it's interesting to watch that even while we've been doing this webinar, about 100 more reports have come in for today. And some of them are probably like me, who didn't quite get around to doing it this morning.
So a few people are asking about evapotranspiration, and so I'll briefly talk about that. Evapotranspiration is a really interesting measurement. I like to call it the anti-rain gauge. If the rain gauge starts out empty and we measure how much fills up the gauge, the ET gauge starts out full of water, and we're measuring how much is evaporating out of the top. I will be honest, this gauge is a much more pricey endeavor. It's a couple $100, I think $225, but the data are extremely valuable, and as much as this unit might be $225, there are farmers and folks in ag who will calculate ET using equipment that can be an entire suite of weather instruments in the thousands of dollars. So what might be a calculation that costs you thousands, here is a $225 rain gauge, or ET gauge that can give you that data directly. So it's a neat. It's fun to measure. Especially if you're in a dry climate where you're submitting zeros every day, the ET gauge gives you something to measure every day. It changes, and you get to go out and read it, and you can see how much water you're actually losing. It's quite a fascinating measurement. I'll click.
And hopefully by summer we'll have about 150 people across the country reporting, but we would love to have one in every county of the whole country.
Yep, and you can see the count. There's 20 people that have submitted an ET data point today, but once the season gets going, this number will grow quite a lot, because right now during the winter time we're not measuring ET. $239.75, so it was a little bit more expensive than I thought, and plus shipping, it's going to be closer to $250. But so we're not. It's certainly optional. It's certainly nothing we're asking folks to do if it's going to be a financial hardship. But if you can do it, we would love it. Okay, so that answers about evapotranspiration. Nolan, what do you think of using a good weather station rain gauge versus the CoCoRaHS rain gauge? We've got all these fancy automated, you can spend hundreds of dollars on these automated gauges. Are those just as good?
Well, let's say this opens up some interesting questions, but we have known that historically home quality and even professional quality automated rain gauges tend to underreport the amount of precipitation that falls in two situations. One is very heavy rains, and one is precipitation that falls in the form of snow or freezing rain. And in the northern tier of states, that difference can be anywhere from 10 to as much as 30% underreporting for the course of the entire year. You get farther south, then you get high intensity rains, and the automated gauges will also tend to underreport. The National Weather Service uses CoCoRaHS extensively because of the gauge that we use, and because that gauge is considered consistent and compatible and within the required plus or minus 4% of in side-by-side comparisons with the official National Weather Service standard rain gauges that have been used for over 100 years. So I love a 1-2 punch of an automated gauge to be able to determine the timing, when it begins, when it ends, how long it lasts, when the heaviest rain falls, and the approximate rainfall rates. It's a wonderful tool to have. But to report daily totals, particularly for year-round in snow and ice and heavy rain climates, the CoCoRaHS gauge is what we require.
All right, thanks, Nolan. Someone asks, and I'm going to answer this one, can I have more than one gauge? Like, let's say I've got one at home, can I put one up at work? And that's a fantastic question, and the answer is yes. Contact us at info@cocorahs.org, and we can add a gauge to your account. It's easiest if you keep one account under one email address, and I've got an example here. What your data entry page will look like this, where you have a drop-down menu, and the same works for the app. If you've got more than one station, you can change your station to the one that you want before you enter the data, and that's that. So yes, you can have more than one station. Most people just have one station, so there's no selecting a drop-down menu like you're looking at here. This is just if you've got more than one station. So very good question there.
And we understand that we've had one volunteer in Texas on a very large ranch who measures as many as 10 gauges and has been known to travel from gauge to gauge by helicopter each morning. Pretty amazing.
Okay, so we're at the top of the hour, and we're going to spend probably just about 5 more minutes with a couple more questions. And then, like I said, if we don't get to your question, either Nolan or myself will email you a response. So, Nolan, how do you suggest to keep a hail pad in place and not blowing over to the next county?
Well, I know how I keep my hail pad in place. I have it on a nice snowboard that's about 16 inches by 16 inches, heavy 3/4 inch white painted plywood. Then I have a couple of finish nails that are just protruding up about 3/4 or less than that, 1/2 inch from the board, and I can press the hail pad down over those finishing nails. And then I also have 2 little L bracket, L screws that I can just turn and tighten until they hold that hail pad in place. And as long as I remember to do that, I have a hail pad waiting for me when I get home. I've had a couple times when I put the hail pad out and forgot to attach it, and it blew away. Very disappointing for me.
I thought we had a photo of a secured hail pad, but again, if you do secure it to your snowboard, you can screw in a little L hook, or as Nolan does, you hammer in some nails from the back. But of course, if you've got animals or kids walking around, you don't want open nails either, so be careful with that. So, but very good. Nolan, what do we do about dew and fog? And we're going to end it on this question here. What do people do for dew and fog that where water ends up accumulating in the gauge?
I'll tell you what the long-standing National Weather Service policies are for measuring precipitation. Precipitation refers to water that falls from the sky, not water that condenses on the surface. So on a clear, moist morning when moisture is condensing on the grass and on the leaves and on your gauge, that would be dew. Dew does not count as precipitation. However, if you have so much dew that it accumulates in your gauge, that's worth a comment, and then be sure to remember to empty it from your gauge. We've had probably up to mostly just 1/100 of an inch would be a typical big heavy dew, but we've had a couple that have been as much as 2 or 3/100 from dew. Now, fog deposition gets really a lot trickier because now we're talking about cloud droplets which are on their way to being big enough to fall as precipitation and are in fact delivering moisture to trees, etc. If those cloud droplets are big enough that you can feel water on your face and see it depositing on the gauge, that is precipitation. If, however, it's just suspended in the air, it's not moistening the surface, that does not count as precipitation. And it's probably fog that's the finest line, and it's probably fog in the West Coast and the redwoods in the rainforest areas where we have some of the more lively conversations about how to handle this properly.
All right, and I guess we're going to end it tonight, Nolan, with one request. Is there a farm update? Do you have a farm story that you can put you on the spot here?
Farm story. Well, I haven't been home today to know if anything exciting has happened. It's about time for us to get some new baby chicks because our old lady hens are getting up in years. We've got probably the oldest rooster in town. So many of the hens are only laying about once every 3 or 4 days, and some people would say that's bad ag economics. So we are going to be restocking with a younger flock here soon. And I just wish I could share a picture of our dogs, because we have 2 of our own and 1 living with us, Australian Shepherds, all purebred Australian Shepherds, all mature, but 1 is 15 pounds, 1 is 45 pounds, and 1 is 75 pounds. And they all have just ears about the same size. And seeing that little mini with those giant ears, and then seeing the 75-pounder, which is really pretty big for that breed, is pretty fun seeing them all together.
Great, thanks so much, Nolan. This has been great. Thank you, everyone, for being on the webinar tonight. Like I said, this is being recorded, so we will post this onto YouTube tomorrow, and I very likely will send I'll probably send have GoToMeeting send a follow-up email to everyone who attended, and in that I'll provide a link to the YouTube video as well. So you can expect one more email from GoToMeeting that just a follow-up to this webinar that will have that information and maybe a few other links as well. So,
and again, assuming that many of you are on because you've just recently joined, we sure welcome you to the Rain Gauge team and hope you have fun in the process. And please know what you're contributing, the time that you're going to put into this is not very much on a daily basis, but the value of what you're doing is really so appreciated.
All right, and with that, we're going to end the webinar for everyone, and thank you so much for attending, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Bye, everybody.